Mhm.
Okay. So how would you
Yeah,
like to introduce yourself?
got it. Well, what about Heather? Mhm. Oh, and do I say your name is Yafer or Jafer? I wanted
Jafar.
to know. Is it
Jafar.
Jafar? Okay, excellent.
Um,
But
so
yeah,
what?
Heather's
And I got the name of her channel in the meme and the the link there, but when we'll see that. What do you think is the purpose of life? This thing zooms in and out, so excuse it when it does that. That's not, I'm not pressing anything.
That's all right. The purpose of life. Well, I believe that we all are creators. So the purpose of life would be to grow up into the world and create goodness and true love. You know, not the artificial love, how people say, oh, I love you and love this and love that. But yet the next day they'll get upset with you about something and not forgive you. Well, what forgiveness is in love. Love is a very tricky thing. But yeah, I think the purpose of life is to us as creators to just create something better than this, better than what it is now.
Well, as some will know, I go into it quite a bit, but I go into love as a noun more than most people would go into it as a subject, but it's certainly more as a verb. More of where the teaching really should lie is as a verb, because it's like, yeah, it's what you do with it.
Exactly.
And sometimes, honestly, it's more of a, there's certain, whether you agree with a person or not, that certain ethic per se that probably be good to treat people with regardless. But yeah. What does it mean to you? What one's supposed to do with life? I guess for some that's a different answer.
Just create something better. Learn the real, true meaning of the concept of love. It's a concept. I believe a person has to, not in the vain, selfish way, but in the what I call right way, is love yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And it's like if you don't have love for and within yourself, there's no way you can give it to somebody else, So, and it took me until, I guess I was 32 before I really realized that I needed to love myself. And, after I accepted that and realized that and put it into action, things got a lot better. Things got a lot better because my pre-30 years, the 20s, early 30s, was a nightmare. And I think the key of that was I didn't have love for myself. I didn't give it to nobody else. So yeah, the purpose
I
of
think that
life.
was missing, like I don't know, I don't remember when it was. It might have been a decade ago or something. I don't know. There was a woman in a laundry room, and she had a book, something about loving too much, and I'm like, that's not possible. It's just not loving yourself or something. Because I find that with a lot of these people, that are even, oh, they say, oh, they love, and well,
Oh,
how they're mistreating other people is directly their own issue with themselves.
yeah, yeah.
And
Because
what
I
they'll be
see
nice to people for a weekend or something, but next weekend, watch out.
exactly. Watch out. You said what I was thinking. I was getting ready to say, if you see somebody hollering love, love all the time, you better run.
Because yeah, that's what I think. It's like I've related how I joined this group and they were all nice until I actually had joined, and it turned out that things were going bad before I even could actually take part in anything as part of the group. And I just find that out, 2 years later. But this person, how they've reacted to people in person has been just as bad. And then once they get them in, then I'm not sure how long they've used this person. There's a movie out about them that's not labeled out about them. The guy wrote a movie talking about his girlfriend that would leave and then a monster would return. And he wrote it at the time when he was with this woman. So, it was about, and he fled the country because she was beating and throwing stuff at him. And he figured, forget my citizenship, I'm gone.
I'm out here.
But there's self-esteem issues, obviously, and that people fight then. You can see how some people, they say, oh, this is issues with that other people have that I'm trying to tell them, about, and you watch their face or you listen to their voice and it's like, no, see, these are the problems with yourself. You write a little book that has a little intro that says that there's some realization that you're afraid of giving up your life if you accept it, and you don't know what it is yet. That's what it is. It's your, but anyways, that's a sidetrack. That has nothing to do with that. I've had a few days where I didn't sleep right or something. So,
It's all right.
when you do the right thing, is it more likely to be out of love of doing good or pleasing divinity, personal enjoyment or pleasure, hope of the results of your deeds, the fear of the consequences of not doing the right, or hate for doing wrong, or for even those who wouldn't do the same?
Well, maybe none of the above. I feel within myself it's like a burning desire for justice, like true justice, not the justice that's out here in the world, you know what I mean? But just true justice for everybody. It actually hurts sometimes when I'll hear of somebody, doing a little something, but the next thing you know, they have, a long sentence for that. It goes to the highest bidder, and justice says. So I've just always felt so strongly about just true justice in the world. It's yeah.
And sometimes I've seen it myself. People with sometimes they've traumatized themselves even more than the person who was the victim, and they have to deal with it for years and years, and they and they end up hurting themselves with drugs or just just the knowledge of it.
Tenement. When things happen to someone, like a victim, first of all, is a survivor. And if a victim could get the mindset of not being the victim, but being the survivor, then they would be able to take that power back from whoever hurt them. So yeah, it's just, I would absolutely love to see real justice, not this crap that's going on today. All about the money.
Yeah, it's it's like they take a couple, it's like taking a couple stupid things that Prince said and said, oh, see, he was a division. It's like, well, what about, he was a pretty good musician and stuff like this. Let's focus on that rather than the actual stupid stuff that we tried to pretend he didn't say back in the day. But you know, because he said something about we don't, it's not about we want paid or something like this, and it's like, yeah, well, you know, something for an album is not necessarily the
Right.
the but I think whether it's ease or difficulty, all of life is an opportunity.
Right.
You know, there's
Yeah.
merits and demerits, and sometimes you tone, but it's too crass to say that whatever hardship anybody endures, it's just they're atoning for whatever. Because very often, like, you know, in our so-called justice system, it tends to be those who are not as much of monsters that are the ones that face it the worst. And then you have some guy that's totally you know, having per se a better situation, but then sometimes it's themselves like not giving themselves the it's like I think that you know, Bundy, it was like he you know, he relates that how he was it was almost like it's almost like a high, the fugue he had, this this horrific separation he had. It was like like he was the monster doing this. It's not like and trying to drink to the point where he, you know, I can't do it again, I can't do it again, I can't do it. That made it easier for him to do it. But yeah, it was like he was living as himself, as the constant figure in the horror movie after him, and it was only it was himself the whole time.
Yeah. He got some kind of high off of it.
But the guy who was you know, one of those guys that could get all this fan attention and all these extra visits and even get married while he was locked up facing death row and whatnot.
Right. It's such a crazy system. Crazy.
Well, I think one of the crazier things is how Manson should have never been released after what they knew he was doing, but it's like, oh, release him into the public. Or Dahmer raped people in the military, and they were like, oh, he'll probably settle down once he gets out of the military. Are you kidding me? He's you know, he rapes another couple of soldiers, and he's let him out of the public. Because they could have put him in the brig for the next couple decades or something over that, but you know, they decided. Is that what they call it, the brig, or is it well, they could have gave him full sentence as a military man, but
they let him loose, like they want him to kill more. Yeah.
Well, remember that one. I never saw it, but and the dark web is honestly set by the government anyways. Anybody who thinks they're going to get away with anything because they go on the dark web, no, the government records all that goes on there. Wow. Al Gore helped set up that thing, so you think they're gonna
wow.
I mean, he was part of the project, obviously. It was a lot more than one person, but there was this guy on the dark web that was like, he killed like 30 people, and the last and put it online, and the last video he was streaming, that before they the police standing by were let him do the last kill. They're like, oh yeah, we know about this guy. Finish.
Wow.
Wow.
See, that's,
so
that is what they think justice is.
But
well, the
thing is, things have to things being dealt with privately kind of don't work. You need to things need to be dealt with publicly, and I don't mean, you know, and not like a circus thing like it used to be with the witch trials and all that stuff. That oh, it's a big great gathering, and oh, we haven't executed any witches for a long time. We need a show. It's like
the witch hunts, yeah, killing.
but
I read about how many witches that they killed. I can't remember the number, but it was a very high number. And just because one person accused another of being a witch, and then they put them to death.
yeah, I've issues on both sides of that. Is one, religious persecution? No, the idea that you know, as I was saying, the Mark Twain book pointed out what had really been the case. You have 25 million people that have been killed because they weren't Christian, or they were supposedly the wrong type of Christian. And 25 million people, that's more than all other faith groups combined as far as what can even be attributed. And then the secular thing comes in and says, no, we're going to do 10 times that. And so we've had 10 times that from that. But like, you know, so the idea of the, you know, because obviously I have some, oh, one can't really see, but I have some books on the whole witch trials and all that. I don't have them right here because I'm talking to you. I just have them right here. But the other thing was all the methods. It's like they specifically picked out poor people, and they trained people, just like in the Satanic Panic. They set forth a list of questions, and you see the testimonies changing and stuff like this. And oh, was it like this? Somebody did a test. Somebody did a test where it was like Texas Walker Ranger, whatever his real name was, and some other person, they wanted to have them as the ringleaders of the abuse. And so they had this forward. And it was like, you know, like one of the things that I semi-reviewed a book. I didn't really review the book. I do those programs on their own, but this, what's it called? Secret Lolita or something like this. Basically, it's a fiction based on Alex Jones. They throw in some magical lessons in the middle of it, but if you're stupid enough to think it's reality and it's not based on that Secret Lolita book from 70 years ago or whatever it was, and Alex Jones, basically, you really think there's some place in the sewer where the Jews are going to be abused children? You have to, once you know the secret, you can join them, and you really kind of, you know. But if people are fed this, they end up thinking that, you know, you can really train people's memories to think they're whatever.
Oh yeah.
And not only did it turn out that most of the real abuse wasn't Satanist in the first place back in the 80s and 90s, that people went to prison for or had their lives ruined otherwise for. But they, yeah, most of it that turned out to be real, you know, with Christians, and most of it most of it wasn't real at all. They just were filling in stuff, like the Psychologist, that famous book Michelle remembers, and a couple other books I think by this person are just books like that. It turned out this person was taking Demerol and dosing the patients and suggesting things to them.
I remember something. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But those books are still available for sale without a label next to them saying, "Oh, this isn't real. This person was high on drugs and suggesting things to people." Yeah. And of course, getting the patients high.
Manson, he like trained those people's thoughts, and yeah, it can be done. And I remember the 80s, the Satanic Panic, and it was my phone bill. It was pretty crazy. I told you about when my mom found my cassette tapes, you know, my music, and she accused me of worshiping the devil.
Well, I liked candles, and I was a lot closer with some stuff. My artwork was I had I use symbolism and all sorts of stuff, and it's like, oh, what, a 5-pointed star is just fine on a Christmas tree or part of Christmas decorations, but if it's outside of Christmas decorations, you're like,
Right. Right.
or like I can build a, you know, you can move a pile of wood, and if you just move a pile of wood, but if you have a couple sticks together in the forest and it's not part of your wood pile, you know, you're casting spells on the whole neighborhood or something. It's like, it's like,
Oh, how people.
I don't know what the name, obviously some of the neighbors have, I think all the neighbors have seen me from a distance out there with, this guy's not doing a bonfire. There's some sort of light or something going on with my group of candles or something out there. And if the, and I take advantage that there's space and stuff. So I don't know, maybe things get quiet enough they can hear me. They probably don't know any Greek if they could
Hello.
understand me at
The
all,
camera
or
froze
whatever
up.
language, you know, even if I'm saying something from the Bible, they wouldn't know the difference between that and anything else. That and Protestants, a lot of Protestants have been taught that, not quite overtly, but like
Yeah.
Latin and Greek are evil. So
Yeah.
they've been given this impression that even the Bible languages are evil. Are you saying Hebrew? He's casting spells. Of course, it wasn't really called Hebrew at the time, but that's actually a different language in the Bible one. But yeah, people get all bent out of shape of stuff that's just not, you know. And even if it was, it's like, I think people deserved a chance to be able to try to experience their religion rather than just sit in the pulpit and have something yelled at them or recited at them. Or
Right. Be free within and follow the within. And, you know, it's hard to explain to other people, so I tend to keep a little quiet, you know, with like my neighbors and things, which I stay to myself. There's a reason.
well, it's, you know,
Not
like
bad or
a lot of
anything.
this, stuff, it's like that's the thing people don't understand about whatever, whether it's even quite explicitly Satanism. It's not an outfit that people wear.
Right.
The Satanic Temple image that they use to freak out people. I mean, just call yourself secular humanist and drop that thing already. But their image is that they just yeah, that's not the thing. Now, I as I said, I employ a lot of symbols and all sorts of stuff, but it's not like, you know, I have to wear black and stuff all the time or anything.
I gotta say this, I call it your middle voice. I love your middle voice. I've heard it in a couple of your videos. Well, that's what I call it, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I could never play guitar quick enough to do that sort of thing. I have some coordination issues. So,
You would be lead singer. Yeah.
because I you know, I did different voices and yeah, but I try to pick the voice for effect. It's like some people now, it's not completely whatever, just, oh, I'm seized by the moment and glossolalia time, you know what I mean? But I don't, you know, it's a technique like my seasonals. I sometimes go into barbarous speech, and that's just part of the thing. And some of it's like, I'm saving it for this time. I'm not doing it in the middle of here. I'm, you know, I'm doing it between things or at the end or something. And interestingly enough, that tends to be something that's doesn't make it in the recording, either fails at that point, or I try to do a second video. I try to, you know, set a second thing because it's time to close or something, and that part gets left out. But sometimes stuff that I can't remember consciously comes through, and then I figure out what I said later.
Yeah.
Because I think most of it,
Totally understand that.
most of it is like the baby language, like because children make all sorts of sounds, and then they learn the speech of their parents and stuff like this, and then they go along with that. So I'm not denying that that's most of what happens, but a lot of what happens is what you've personally said. Like I think a lot of demon interested charismatics, when they go into speech, I've caught on TV, I had a tape that had some of this stuff, and it had this documentary exposing Benny Hinn and stuff, and some guy took it to Pakistan. He borrowed it, lent it to someone else, and that person went back home. So that but I looked at the something sounded where I've looked at the TV. I'm like, okay, I'm recording this. This looks like I think I recorded anyways, but there was multiple things that I recorded, that like weird stuff off TV, and they were chanting lists of demon names out of some grimoire from the 1500s and stuff. And it's like, that's interesting. You know, this is supposed to be your serving you know, you got to know what you say. Like these people that just you know, I'll tell you, I have videos telling more of this, but for example, I have in my Lzwvmmh language, which your name is Lzwvmmh, Sivas, alnw, vifu, dvso, hurry. You can translate everything into numbers. 0 is the A, 1 is the L, 2 is the G, 3 is the I, 4 is the U, 5 is the R, 6 is H, 7 V, 8 T, 9 M, 10 N, 50 B, 100 S, 500 E, 1,000 F, 10,000 W, 100,000 O, 1,000,000 Y, 1,000,000,000 D, a zillion Z, 2 times is J, 9 times is P, 7 times is Q, 3 times is X, 5 times is K. What is C? Oh, C indicates a fraction. Okay. But I always usually ends up in the middle of this, the lunar day of when I you know, the waxing crescent is seen. And then that's day 1. So usually the lunar time is indicated there. Alnw means center. Hari is something female related. I don't remember. What is that? Oh well, you know, if you're a mother, that fits too. I guess the term matriarch came up in there. What else came?
Me. I'm the matriarch.
Okay, so I don't remember what other. I'm looking through this thing here, trying to figure out what words came to this. There tends to be some sort of symmetry, and you can arrange them all as squares. Because you notice how I got when I do my seasonals, sometimes I have written as a square, 3x3 square, the chant that I got. Sometimes it's part of the diagram that I have.
I've used my name that you told me about, and yeah, with some chants. It was good. It was good.
I don't remember, but it turns out things fit. And it turns out that when I first started getting these things, it was weird. Oh, dvso, I don't remember I don't have written here what that one word means. Okay, but I found out that like when I got the chants for the goetic entities and some other things like that, it fits. It fits in with there's something about it, and sometimes it's something that once I know what the word means, then I find the mythological reference somewhere else.
Wow.
So, but I just trusted the process of writing the thing down. But I was like, now I kind of know what the things mean per se.
And that came to you. That was cool.
Like I'll have a dream or I'll have a sense of something, and that's how the name pans out.
Yeah.
And like, as I said, there was one guy that it was at 9, and 9 makes sense to me because we have eyes, you know, we got our 9 gates, right? Eyes, nose, ears, mouth, and the other 2. But he only had 8 as part of his name.
Oh,
And
wow.
I don't know why he was special that way, but that's just how it came out.
Interesting. Speaking of visions, my last vision, they hit out of the blue. Like the last vision I had, I was at the kitchen sink. And the next thing I know, when I look around my kitchen, it wasn't the kitchen. It was a totally different scene. And it lasted maybe a couple minutes. I was consciously aware of me being in the kitchen, but all the scene around me, every which direction I looked, I could see, image to image, and heard the sounds of it. And yeah, it just hits out of the blue.
That's well, that's one of the things. Some of the psychedelic stuff and whatnot, you can bring about sort of willfully or whatnot, even though maybe the patterns you can't control that much or whatever. But yeah, you end up being surprised by stuff. That's what I was saying in a comment to someone else recently that these people who worry about wealth and fame, magic, and all this other stuff. If you focus on the development and the devotion aspects of magic, some people consider magic a bad word or something, but you know what I mean. Then some of the other benefits come.
Exactly.
If you're trying to have these sensual, visionary sort of experiences, those are going to be more common when you actually develop yourself to go along with stuff rather than just these practices to get high. Like I remember this episode. There was an episode of Simpsons where Lisa was a Buddhist, and maybe she's a Buddhist in other episodes. I don't know. I stopped watching Simpsons every week, but the Lenny and Carl are Buddhists too, so they're at the Buddhist temple or whatever it is, and who likes short shorts? I like short shorts. So I go over to my big dark mirror later that night, and I said, I'm giving this a try. And it's weird and all that stuff, but one of the things is like a lot of these techniques. I mean, if you're just doing it to get high, you think you're gonna it's very difficult to spend 2-3 months at something to get to this point when you're just trying to get the sensual thing out of it.
Exactly.
But when you combine it with stuff, then it's then it's no big deal, and it's spending extra, because you can literally feel like you're on pretty much any drug you want, but people get scared because it's like, how do you not mess up your heart and stuff? That's the thing. If you take 50 doses of caffeine or take some cocaine or something, you're going to have different effects with your heart that you would never have if you're trying to release ephedrine, or you're trying to hit that spot. I mentioned the cocaine. You hit that spot in between these 2 points, and it's not the pineal. It's before that, and literally now separating some of the feelings can be, again, a further effort, because you're getting this rush of energy, this incredible rush of energy, and everything's like more important or something. But sometimes your face will go totally numb amidst it. Like, well, pleasantly numb, whatever, but kind of like, but you don't have the feeling like in your face, but it's like a pleasant numbness, kind of like when you go to the dentist, but you're not loopy. And that's the thing, you're not loopy. if you're not
Right.
high, if you're not intoxicated, you're not loopy. All this stuff, you have this clarity to it. It's like
Oh,
I've said with opiates that have been prescribed to me, and it's like even when it's going perfectly, it's still like you're being forced to feel it, or you're being trapped. It's like I don't want to feel this way for 4
yeah,
hours.
it is a trap.
Although laying around on your bed and listening to rock and roll for 4 hours is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but
I have done meditations, and no, and things, and I'll feel physical sensations, just naturally. So yeah.
well, it's like the pentagrams. You know what you're supposed. I don't. I don't want to use the word supposed to, because it's more about a cosmological statement when you do these pentagram and these hexagram rites. And in particular, I guess the heptagram and some other stuff, you can have that sort of idea, because like when you draw the 7-pointed stars, some people try to figure out where they look at the star charts and try to figure out where Venus and Mercury and all that's supposed to be.
Right.
But you end up, when you trace the pentagrams, you trace that line sensually with your awareness across your body, up the leg and over the head and all sorts of stuff. What do you think happened before and during, if there was something mystical for birth?
Well, I have something that's interesting, and I could share it. Um, I'm like I said, I'm the matriarch of the family, 4 daughters and 6 grandkids. But my very first daughter told me, she was older. She told me this, but she said she needed to talk to me and tell me something. And I was like, okay, because they always knew they could come into this day. They can come and tell me anything, and we'll work it out. But she said that when I conceived her, that she was like a little orb, lavender orb energy, and she flew into my body. And it was very strange because she described the place where, me and her dad were, that evening. And that's something, of course, I had never told, my daughters. Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you. But, I had never, of course, told my daughters the places where they were conceived. But yeah, she told me and described um, the scenery, to a perfect T. So that was pretty interesting. I
And
believe
I know one of the things that there are Tibetan practices, for example, and some, I guess, yoga tantric sort of stuff too, where they try to bring themselves back to that moment. Now, in Western society, we need a little more detail to not think, well, it's still weird, but it's still not. It's different. It's a different thing than people would think, or you know. But yeah, I don't. I've never say done that, but there are some senses that people have and memories and stuff like this,
yeah,
like beforehand and stuff like that.
I know it blew me away when she told me that, and I was like, wow. I mean, she described the exact place. That was just that that threw me back a minute. You know what I mean? So yeah. Well, I believe we are energy. Um, Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can be directed, but it's like recently I've thought about, after death. the physical body may be no longer, available as a car we drive. Um, that I believe we go on. What's interesting is where and could we possibly choose where we go next if that if that is possible. Um, so yeah, I've had some deep thoughts lately.
Well, I definitely think it's possible to a degree, because, well, there's what you judge of yourself. Like, one of the things that recently got put up on my channel was the verse where it's basically one type of person goes to the judgment and they're like, basically, I'm a sinner, I'm unworthy, and all that stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
well, then, what else do you expect to go with where that's going? And another person is going like, hey, I've tried to believe and do the right things. It's like, so there's that. And it's like our consciousness, maybe some people are more intelligent than other, that's whatever, but what we do with them, our beliefs and our
Yeah,
actions, well, those are our choices. And it
yeah,
doesn't make sense, this idea everything's the same. And it's like, saying that something's reality doesn't make it reality, and reality, I don't think, cares whether or not you believe in it or not. It's still going to be reality.
right.
So people's beliefs and actions, all that stuff matters. And whether an action is easier or harder or whatever, I'm one of these people who believe that it's, rather than through bad dealings, if you're making your money through bad dealings, you can give a whole pile of charity and it won't count like somebody who walked along and found a couple coins and dropped that in something to help somebody poor or something. But your individual deeds, those count. It's like your character. It's like in this world, your character
Yeah,
is a product of different choices. It's not like you flip a switch
right.
and decide you're going to be this or that sort of person.
Exactly.
Of course, over time, you can kind of redirect some things, but it's that's one of the things is like, people make paradigm shifts, and it's like, why is the old stuff still coming back? And it's like, well, that's because what you programmed. And you know
Mhm.
um
Right.
the what do you think will happen to you during and after death? I mean, in a mystical sense, of course.
Mhm. Uh, yeah, that's something I've thought of recently. Tried to look into it, meditate upon it. Um, but like I was saying, I believe like the physical body is like a car. We're driving the car. In other words, the self within us is the energy. The physical, it'll go away eventually. But that energy, where does it go? You know, does it go into another person? Can it decide to be a little spirit? You know. um. So yeah, that's a good question, and I ponder upon it a
Have
lot
you ever had
recently.
any of those experiences where you stop merely believing like you're the soul or spirit or whatever, and you are it? um
Oh, when I was 19, I had my first out of body experience. Um, I was laying down, I was in my bed, and I just came up out of myself. I opened my eyes. I was looking at the ceiling, and I looked down, and there, I was laying in my bed, and so on and so on. But yeah, that was my first out of body experience. I know it wasn't a dream. It was not a dream. I was doing like a type of meditation before, it happened. So, and it happened. There's there's been some experiences that I've seen firsthand that it just has no explanation. The I've seen what people would call ghosts. You know, um, When I was younger, oh, this has been 20 years ago, um, my first home, uh, it was in a little coal camp, here in the Appalachian, little coal towns, they built all those little houses back when the coal days was booming. And it was years ago. Um, at the time, I think now that the house we got, it may have been around 80, 90 years old, but it was old. That little community had been there quite a while because of the coal. That is where I saw the little girl. She had on a white dress. You could tell it was like very old style clothing. I saw her. I saw a man, and I saw the lady once with the flaming red hair. Um, the little girl, now she was playful, if that's what she really was. I had my hair up like in a ponytail, kind of like this. And I was sitting in a chair in the in my living room, and she walked by. We had like an L-shaped couch and set up like that. But she came by and she flipped my ponytail. She actually touched me. And I looked and it was the little girl. I wasn't like really afraid, but hey, that was a moment that like tears come to my eye. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've just been touched, physically touched. But yeah, that point of time in that house was just some crazy, crazy experiences. My youngest daughter at the time, um, she would giggle at night, like every night being there, giggle, giggle, giggle. I would ask her, why are you giggling? And going on like this. And she said she was talking to little Heather. Um, the stranger thing that happened was now my eldest daughter was laying down to go to sleep in her bed, and she was like held down by something unseen, and it was now that was a little bit terrifying. I tried to lift her up, and I mean her body was pressed into the mattress about like this. That lasted, it seemed like forever, but it was just a couple minutes in reality. That was just unexplainable. And I guess the biggest thing that happened there at the house, um, well, now my ex-husband, but my husband at the time, uh, he was violent. He became quite violent. Um, and I mean, I had no prior knowledge or training or nothing. What do you do? Um, but one night I was led to take him outside on the deck. We had a deck, a wraparound deck we had built. I take him outside, and I remember I don't remember what I said. I don't even know if it was English or not. But I remember him laying on the deck, and my voice became commanding and loud. And there was like a red, when I looked down at him, his eyes were red. And then the redness kind of lifted up out of his body and it shot straight up into the sky. I felt the heat off of it when it came by my face. That was that was crazy. Not crazy, but I've never experienced anything like that. Thank goodness I haven't anymore. So yeah. Yeah, we moved out of there. We didn't stay in that house long. And to this day it sits empty. It's been empty for 20 years, about 20 years.
Well, I related somewhere where I was at. It was a spring equinox 12 years ago.
Mhm.
I was going to the park, hanging out with a friend. We did plan to do rituals, but we came down around this main clearing of this park, and I have partial account, I guess, of the whole thing. But we felt that we felt this like evil. There was this like great evil down like all over the clearing, and we couldn't even see the thing yet. But it's like it was coming from that direction, and we got down there, and somebody had erected this weird temple to Baal. It was like, to illustrate to the people who are viewing,
Wow.
the first one, the first symbol on the left, the upper left corner there. Well, I guess that graphic kind of obscures it, but
There you go.
the guy up there with the little armor and the holding the two little bits there. One of the things I do is I try to figure out what those things, but anyways, yeah, it looks the most like a single person with armor out of the whole goetic thing. But there were several magic circles around trees, and the sigil put on the trees, but there was this pit. There was this pit with these black birds circling around it. And we're like, oh yeah, we can't touch that because who knows what they put in there.
Right.
And we're like, we've been down here. We got to be ahead of this rather than somebody sees us and thinks we're the ones who did this. But anyway, so we did our little exorcism of the place. We whipped something together. It wasn't exactly some planned thing, and the energy just totally changed from the place. But so the police wanted to know if we caught the people, if we caught the people masturbating.
Oh wow.
That's what was attracting all the birds, and I'm like, how many people were down there doing that? I don't know how you attract a flock of birds doing that, but anyways, the energy of places can be changed. Can be changed. It's just per se. Maybe you need to know how to do it. But yeah, some stuff happens in places. Like I didn't know what to do about it. There was a guy who hung himself on a door. And anywhere within like 20, 50 feet of that apartment, or what you could say, there was just this unpleasant energy associated with the place, like forever. I don't know if it was like all the time, whatnot, if there was ever a break with that, but as far as I knew, it was like always associated with that place. But then again, I don't think anybody ever tried to reclaim the place or whatever energetically. But so what do you believe about divinity?
About divinity? Are you talking like bliss?
Well, whatever term you use for deity or deities or spirits or gods.
I believe that we all, of course, have a deity or a daemon, or I believe that it's with us. It's ourself. It's part of us. I believe that maybe we can direct some energy into that and make it more physical, That's something I've recently pondered about. Mhm.
Like the yogis or the tantrics or the Sufis who they don't literally, well, some of them literally have names of God or whatever written all over their bodies, but some people, it's actually more of the lines of what people don't get about those little, well, I don't have one as an example or something, but you know, those little boxes that in Jewish homes and stuff, and then they have it in like the box they tie to their hands. That's making it very physical, but really, okay, it's going to be between the eyes and on the forehead. You know, the basically those principles are lived out by your hand, by inside, but by your head, by your door, by your fence post. People are going to know this person lives those principles. That's how I see it. And that's sort of what my channel logo means, is that you have this undefined, it's broken into two things. The consciousness is the black symbol, and the other is the active part of it. So one is in line with these principles, like, you know, you don't even have to necessarily mention a divinity or something like that, a divinity by this name or quality or whatever, and the people are going to be reminded of that quality. You know,
I have at my entrance door, I have a little round box with a little thing I wrote in it. And you know, usually people would say, "What is that? What is that?" But anybody that comes here, it's like they don't even see it, and it's right there at the door.
so it's your own version of the mezuzah. But it's like it's why, like, why these path workings and stuff going, whether you got a deck of cards here, and the you know, and you're working through the things like that, because honestly, well, I mean, this isn't a tarot deck, this is a Russian deck, and I don't know if you missed it. Well, you know, this was the card that showed up during the one story that I pulled, because I think it showed up on screen because I did hold it up. But these the snake thing is the powers, because I guess that's what, I don't know what Russian symbol of numbers this stuff is, because it's got these weird little glyphs here. As far as the numbers, it has the number in English with it, so that helps. But the what was I saying? Or how the Sufis, they you know, you chant names of God, and they usually have a list of 99 and they chant them, but it becomes one's character. Like if you're sick or something in a particular way, or you have a problem, you chant this name a particular number of times and that sort of thing. And, you know, it evokes something in you. That's what a lot of people don't get, I think, is that you're doing these practices as much as you can really be serving some spiritual entity, that you are there can be really some reality to it. You're evoking this stuff out of yourself. You're not just having the sensual experience. You're it's like what Confucius, one of the like the series I just recorded, I repeatedly brought up Confucius. It's like ritual Li is to produce and maintain Ren, you know, that noble character. And that's what it naturally does. Some people, they kind of, when they don't get into the thing, like you hear that, I was watching this thing and they said that Saddam Hussein, there's this video where he orders friends and all sorts of stuff killed. And they said, oh, well, Saddam Hussein said yeah, he had something of religion in him, but he obviously didn't live the principles that he was praying. If he attended the congregation and understood things 5 times that day and then had all those people killed, he obviously didn't get the things about the small kindness and some other stuff that he was bound to hear.
Right. He missed the part.
Like I can think of, there's someone in my family that expects to be rich, and that's going to help them basically. What do they call those, indulgences? So they hope to be able to pay their indulgences by getting you know, by winning the lottery or something. And it's like, no, you're not going to, you know, because people, you know, just like people show up and, oh, I did a prayer, so that covers everything. It's like, yeah, you still got to live the life. And why are you praying stuff that you're not practicing? And
Right.
but sometimes people years and years and years, and then finally something clicks. Like I met a guy that like the year before, the year he died, I think, he changed his life. I mean, he didn't really have that bad of a life or something, whatever, but he totally changed his religion and all that just a few years before he died. And he learned more than any whatever, but he made some decisions and stuff like this. He at least wasn't wasting his time. That was the perspective. Like everybody else, most
Yeah.
people just waste hours a day.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the whole point. That like the news has this music to it, right? And that music to
Yeah.
the news is part of the grift.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But it's distraction. It's not to get something done and all that. And they're feeding you the doctrines that they want. And you even phrase things differently. People are going to get upset about at you or something. And like,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, so he you know, but other people are on a path to begin with, and they're like, oh, what is, well, obviously the 10 card would be like castles. So but I mentioned this is the powers. Remember in the this is the daemon card, I guess, because the in Greek,
Yeah.
all those male and kind of like the word cherub. Cherub really means like jinn, fairies, that sort of thing, because it's the male and female entities. Some of them have choices, that sort of thing. It's not the same thing as the other. If you just read English in the Bible, there's a lot of stuff you're gonna miss. A lot of interesting mystical stuff, and like, I don't just mean the unicorns and vampires, which is pretty interesting that there's all this talk about unicorns and vampires. Well, not that much. I mean, it does talk about this woman and her 2 vampire daughters. But you don't necessarily get that Alucard was what? But in ancient Egypt, remember that one of the two of the things that you end up getting when they talk about all these male and female divinities is that invisible, fire, and snake-like. So you get all 3 of those things as common things. Of course, the red is obviously it's the fire suit, you know, because there's just, even though there's you know, a majors sort of thing, and then the minors, you end up with 18 of each. So I like that it has 72. 72 is a nice mystical number. And oh, and I guess this one's Turkish. Ah, okay.
There it is. Right there. Okay, I see.
Because it has a pinnacle and with a crescent on top, so it's makes you think of something Turkish. I don't. Oh, what was that supposed to mean? Well, they all mean a bunch of different things. But what are your favorite attributes of divinity?
What are my favorite attributes of divinity? That's a good question. Well, I think it just goes back to my burning desire for justice, true justice. I believe that would heal so much. I even, when I hear of people getting unjustly done, even if I don't know the person, it upsets me, you know. And then, like we said earlier, these ones that get out and actually hurt and kill people are let loose for a little while. So I really think that if there was true justice, um, so many things would be correct.
I guess the 8 of water is sort of the emotional justice thing. I find it interesting that their 8s have bats.
Yeah.
There's bats right there. There's that owl. People don't, there's all this nonsense about the Illuminati by people who have no idea what it is. Some guy in the 50s wrote these books, and I'm not sure when he died, but the William Guy Carr, he basically combined all the, he was like the Satanic Panic of his age. He combined all the, the secret organizations or elite clubs that you join, and treated them all as some big malicious conspiracy and all this stuff. And the Illuminati actually helped produce countries like America with our, well, republic, but they leaned towards democracy, and they leaned away from this monarchy and church control. And you know,
the ones that are in power, they don't go by what they're supposed to.
but the ruling families and individual, either the secondary or the primary, they were like, you know, one of the things with them is that they don't, it's not the system of government. They're still in charge or whatnot, whether we have communism, socialism, capitalism, so-called anarchy. They're all, you know, there's something going on. Like if you have areas that basically the gangs have taken over, well, there's they have a hand there too, to a degree. But so yeah, they don't care with that. But but basically all these scams, you think somebody does something perverted and whispers some words or something, or mumbles something at some Hollywood party, and then somebody becomes famous. It's like, if that's happening left and right, obviously it's just people know it's a scam, and they're gonna, instead of going back and saying, oh, my big break, your big break happened just because, like Van Halen went around like LA doing small little shows, and then they broke big. Lady Gaga went around doing small little shows, trying to get little stuff going in the New York area. And that's how these people broke big. It wasn't because some person did something perverted while mumbling nonsense to them, and somehow they joined the Illuminati. Or Miley Cyrus was already working for Disney when she was raped in Europe or something like this, and somebody that she thought that the people were Satanist or something like that, and she said "Hail Satan," and you know, things continued. But people, you know, so he's at fault. He's at fault for a lot of this, because people realized with information that he put out that they could use this to scam people.
Right.
But the real Illuminati has an owl. There is no eye in the triangle. Anybody who says eye in the triangle or anything like that with the Illuminati, they're liars. They're either liars or they don't know. They had the owl, they had books, and so that card reminds me of the Illuminati whole thing, because the whole owl and the book thing. But they were like, you know, basically like another, like, well, they were a spin-off of the Masons, you could say.
Yeah. Too.
And instead of the peace thing, I guess this is interesting. You know, got to get one of each suit out. The twos have the scroll. I don't know what it says on it. The book doesn't. The book doesn't say what the writing is on the scroll or some other interesting things. But instead of the, because remember the two of swords is like it has the swords and it's the peace card.
Right. Yeah.
So this is sort of a peace via there's terms, and because of these terms, peace exists. And you know, you got a helmet, like it's a victory thing going on.
Yeah.
So I asked you what your favorite attributes of never mind. What limits do you describe to divinity?
Limits for divinity. It would be maybe unlimited. I don't consider even ourselves limited. I would say just for it to be, it's unlimited. I believe basically, since we are creators, we can definitely make things the way we want. The problem is the greed sometimes in the heart
Well, very
that
often
keeps
we're
people from doing that. And thus, here's the world.
given a feeling that limits us and holds us in, and that feeling's not necessarily. Sometimes it's not good to pretend that we have all this ability that we really don't, but
Right, right,
often we're given limits that we're not, you know, that are just completely artificial and don't really do much for us. Now,
right.
if everybody tries towards something, then you end up
Yeah,
achieving a
there's the
lot more. It's like sometimes you literally need 100 people doing something, but it's
yeah,
fulfilling in itself whether or not it reaches the physical conclusion that's desirable. But yeah, some technologies and stuff like this, you have a bunch of people that are figuring it out at the same time. One person has the opportunity, like all this stuff with the binaural things. I know I wasn't the only one. All these brain waves and stuff like this, and it's inserting into music and stuff like this. A lot of this stuff been going on for quite some time, different tones having certain effects and stuff like this. But I had this idea, right? Okay, because it was getting to the point where you had like a CD player you carry around. And so you had a device where you could adjust the musical tone, you could adjust the brain waves and
well,
other things about the mode. So you have a music therapy little device that you carry around with you.
yeah,
And basically you could use it to treat a bunch of stuff that supposedly, even though the research shows that it's more effective than medication, that can't really go in too much of that here because of what might be said. But anyways, I found with myself that this stuff, has certain effects. I
yeah,
listen to what you could call binaural beats per se, with like chanting and stuff like hours a day on average. But and I watch all the programs
gonna,
stuff I do. But what?
I'm gonna try listening to the binaural beats. I've heard of that spoken before.
But
What does
now
it?
it's like now you have all this stuff on the YouTube and all this stuff, and you can put your headphones on and just get it cheap. But I still think there'd be use for little device that you could have and just set, and because there is issues with like using the speakers versus using headphones and
Yeah.
having an extra computers and stuff are sizable enough, and then you're going to have to worry about how am I going to shut off those extra sounds with my computer.
Mhm.
So I mean, if people still buy little devices that only have like the Bible on it or something like this to go listen to, I'm surprised that someone else hasn't made it per se more available. But they did go out on the news against it. No binaural beats. Once they get
Oh,
hooked on binaural beats, they're going to be on the street with the real drugs. It's like the implication is actually the opposite. Or I caught this bit. Somebody didn't know, and I believe maybe the newscaster didn't know either. You know about blood oranges?
blood oranges, like red oranges.
Yeah, they kind of have like a slight raspberry sort of taste to them, but
Yeah, I've never tried them.
somebody like freaked out or something in the Portland area that these
Okay.
oranges from Africa, that people were injecting them with AIDS blood because they didn't know that they were supposed to be like that, and they contacted the news, and a news crew came over,
Oh boy.
and some conspiracy theory about AIDS blood injected oranges from Africa, and like, and they're like, oh well, this chain now carries blood oranges, and they're supposed to be like that, but because I guess when you're at the clearance bin or something too, you can get stuff and you don't know what it is. It's like, well, I'll get this bag of citrus fruit, and it's like those are oranges, and you take them home, and
Yeah. We
You
really
open it
don't
up, and
know.
you open it up, you don't know it's supposed to be reddish inside, and they injected it with AIDS blood. No.
Surprise, surprise.
But that was, yeah. Um, what do you do? And there are bad things going on in this world. It's just we don't need extra things thrown in. I think that's why
Yeah,
some
yeah.
stuff Alex Jones and stuff hear about first, because they know it's going to discredit it and delay it being taken seriously till it's too late if he's the one putting it forward for the first year or two.
Mhm.
Oh, underhand dealings in Ukraine. Oh, that's a complete conspiracy theory. And we find out this year, no, it's been going on for what, 10 years prior to that, and by certain people. So this isn't a war out of the blue. This thing was long coming. But no, it's complete conspiracy theory, because Alex Jones was the one to break the story. Someone fed it to Alex Jones, and Alex Jones, you can't trust anything out of that guy's mouth. It's he does say some stuff that was true, but his ways of figuring out things are true is either he heard a rumor, or he just presumes that it's possible that this might just happen.
Right.
I think he needs to admit that some of this stuff that he looks into for research isn't just for
Yeah.
research. It's his own personal
Sure.
issue there. But yeah, but I know, for example, they're not just making up stuff, they're outright lying. These people, Alex Jones and Pat Watson and some of those other people. As I said with my one more article, I found out these people said that there's this book, but if they read the book, they know what they're claiming is a lie. They knew what they were claiming. This bad stuff about the Georgia Guidestones was just wrong.
Right.
In fact,
Yeah.
if anything, it's the opposite of Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I just, if you said you were orbiting it, did you see it?
Did I see?
Did you see what I figured out there that no one seemed to say about what the capstones?
Yeah. I saw your video where you went and filmed the Georgia Guidestones, and it's just crazy how people are saying that they're so bad.
It's one of the most
That's
vandalized
thing.
places in the country.
Yeah, and there's
as far as a monument
that I saw that was bad.
But yeah, it's basically stuff's going on in this world, and they're like, if it gets, they just wanted something good to be left as a thing to remind people, like, and warn people lest they forget where all the destruction and stuff happened. Well, there could be issues with that, so it mentions about that.
Yeah.
The guy even put out a book because he thought he wanted to make sure the people who did it put out a book, and which is readable, because they wanted people to understand.
They definitely use fear to control the masses. It's one of their techniques.
Oh, because they're like, oh no, Thomas Paine. It mentions Thomas Paine in that square off to the side. We all know how bad Thomas Paine was. It's like, no, we don't really. Explain it to us. What sort of things do you think would be difficult to do in the name of divinity?
Things would be difficult to do. Well, for one thing, it would be difficult to do anything against true justice. Sometimes, like people in authority, it's like they're not dishing out what they should. And when they do dish it out, it's way too much. It just all goes back to that. All of it. One thing I couldn't do would be like to be a judge. And like constantly. But on the other hand, at least a little bit of what I think true justice may be brought out Oh yeah.
Well, the fact one knows that both the prosecuting and the defense attorneys are kind of twisting things away from the facts, and some systems
Yeah.
supposedly they don't have either of those. But the fact that you feel that things are directed. One, these statute things where it's like, why is one person worse than the other because they use one thing versus the other. But a lot of stuff is directed to filling the cells at a particular time. So you see a far worse criminal get almost no time or probation or something. But when the jails are empty enough, oh, now the judge is directed to give this person 10 years.
There's in a private owned local jail, the terms are it has to be kept at 95% occupancy in order for them to receive their federal funding. So you can kind of see how that money's behind there. They're going to keep it at 95% occupancy. And this is a small place. I mean, town population of maybe 900, 950, something like that. A very small area. But yeah, it's like people are just being hauled off down there for nothing. So, well, definitely something they should have been, given time for. It really strikes a nerve in me. Like, ever felt a burning desire for something to, be corrected? And that's just how I feel.
Well, we know right well that there's even at the height of slavery that was, well, I mean, that was surpassed along quite a bit ago. But even before the corporatization of the prison, you ended up having more people locked up than you ever had in the in slavery in this country. And you also had it, they took away, they even got rid of the penalties that would have prevented a lot of the crime. The removal of the death penalty was just to have those people working for the state by force for 20 years or something like that. That was the preference, even though they knew that would have resulted in more crime.
The prison
Of course, too many death penalties is not a good thing either.
Right. Right.
Oh, you stole a big enough of an item. We need to kill you now. Or because how many people got killed for horse theft?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do it, but once you kind of left the area, I understand someone gets on your property and you catch them and whatnot, but once they've left, things have kind of cooled down. Things can be kind of dealt with in a more public, regular manner. But and then of course you don't know, someone's trespassing on your property, stealing, how things are going to go if you're less than hard-handed.
I believe like for somebody to be sentenced, there should be like a victim, and you see it all the time, people going to jail for driving on suspended license and things like that. I believe there's more corruption in small places, than larger places. Larger places, things can be seen by more people more easy. But in a small place, yeah, 95% occupancy.
Yeah, and leaving it open, leaving it open to violations by the guards and whatever, how things are going to be handled, rather than it being a more exacting system and chosen that way. Some guy goes in the drunk tank and gets worse treatment than someone who spends 20 years and is in there for something serious.
Yeah, murder or something.
But
exactly.
And everybody's like, this guy's killed before, so look out for him. Because especially after a person's locked up for 5 years, it's not really a deterrent anymore.
Yeah, institutionalized. Yeah, definitely so corrupt. I hate it. I hate it so bad. And see, I researched it when I went to actual, government websites and researched how does a private owned jail, do they receive federal funds? And that led me to another thing I researched, and I found out that, yep, 95% occupancy or no federal funds. And the federal funding is quite large. And
And it'd be so much cheaper. It'd be so much cheaper to address something where people's needs will be met, and then then there's not that desperation that can add to that, than it is to put people, then to lock people up. It can cost it costs twice as much, 2-3 times as much to take to lock someone up than it would be to get them, government housing or something. But I mean, that's usually not why people, whatever, but it's certainly a factor, because people somebody gets a bill and then they end up getting and they don't know how they're gonna do it, and figure, oh, I can do this to get away with it. And it certainly feeds into a motivation. Like, the only people around that earn $50,000 or something are the criminals. And as some neighborhood, I've been in neighborhoods like that. That's unless you had multiple people working in the home, there's just basically no way in that neighborhood that anybody is earning that much, except like drug dealers and stuff. So you're a pimp or a drug dealer or something, and that's the only way for you. And yeah, that, and you have to spend $1,000 a month rent and stuff like this, so people feel like,
that's crazy. In this area, like, rent usually goes for like $350, $450 if it's multiple bedroom. Oh yeah, but yeah, I've heard in the cities rents are like $1,500 a month. That's a house payment. That's a nice house payment.
Yeah, well, some of my videos were done in a place that's wasn't up to code, and they figured, well, nobody can afford to move, and they're still charged. I don't know if any of that's been fixed, and they're charging $1,500 something a month. Last I heard, I haven't looked into it for a few years what the thing is, but you can see black. You can see black and green on the walls in every room that I've decided to film there, but it was everywhere. It was, and it's like $1,500 a month for a moldy place, and you can't get into anywhere else because you have to have 3 times the rent, and most people don't have 3 times the rent. So people taking advantage.
Yeah, most definitely.
But there's but the thing about the prison system, it's like the idea should be reform and prevention of crime, not harboring it.
Harboring it. It makes them money.
and more and more there's this idea, rather than penitentiary, that you basically dehumanize the people. It's like, what's going to happen when they get out? They're going to be even worse on the rest of us. So it's not,
Yeah, it's just all about the dollar, and it seriously gets to me.
Well, and they just like the military. I saw this thing with this guy. It wasn't until the 90s, some of those people who were witnesses to the atomic bomb tests, it's like practically a mystical experience, some of what those people experienced. And I guess that's part of why it came off some of the way it did, because it wasn't given that sort of context. Was the horrific things that some of these tests they do to people in prison and military and stuff like this is, because they knew they weren't going to be totally destroyed. They put them in places like that, but they still got thrown about, broken bones. Very few of them lived old enough to the point where they were allowed to tell even their family. And in the middle of it, it was like stuff like, when the heat wave hits you, it's like there's a big person that runs through you. That's kind of what it's like. And it's not like other heat. It's like literally just like pass through you, like some sort of demonic presence or something like this. Of course, no one in the film described it that way, but that's kind of what's kind of described, you could say, are like, you could sit across from someone and in the room, and it's like you see all their bones, you see all their veins when all this stuff is going on.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because it's like, what's the meme I got there? Not on the screen. Hold on. I came up with it the other. Yeah, this. One of the things about this is that you prepare for your, like, well, it's the Tower card basically, but it's called war here. So you're preparing for one's death moment. One of the things that one prepares for is the maintaining or building up that direction or whatnot of spiritual consciousness for your death moment. And that includes stuff like nuclear war and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see
So,
that in that first picture. Their card. That red reminds me of what I saw in the vision that I had, the last one. And I'll go ahead and tell you what it was. It was a scene of war. There was like a red sky. There was burnt, blackened trees, just like sticks. You know, the trunk of the tree was the only thing left. No branches, no leaves. Audibly, I could hear people just in agony making these terrible noises, dying. You know. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was after that I received a message within, you know, to prepare. The second event is in 2023. So what's going to happen? Could it be war? I don't know.
well, I thought it was, I don't know if we already talked this today or something, but I thought it was a trip, that video, the Pope releasing those peace doves back right before Crimea was taken. And what a seagull comes down, bites one of the doves, and the dove gets away. So some feathers or whatnot get lost there. And you can now, just like a good oracle reader, you can now go back and say stuff about that you would never say without the information. Like all these astrologers saying, see, it was going to be, this is the year where the world war starts and stuff like this. But oh, come on, you wait till Russia's literally invading Ukraine to make this announcement and all these things you predicting with the card readings or something. No. It's like now we can interpret that and say, okay, Russia's going to attack Ukraine and take a piece of Ukraine. So Crimea, okay, gone. Now, because that happened later in the year, but the crow that came and killed the other peace stuff. So
Wow.
Ukraine. So I thought it's an interesting combination with what's going on. But anybody predicting, oh well, Russia, that means Russia's going to take part of Ukraine and then it's going to come back and annihilate Ukraine for good. You can't really interpret that at that time, right? Or at least it's like, well, if a war is looming with in some ways, the most powerful army, in other ways not, because it's not just money. That's the thing people don't understand about Russia and China. Russia and China use their money not to make a handful of profiteers rich. They do more. Their money goes further than it does the American dollar put into our military. And both of them make more alliances than by principle, you could say, more than well, I mean, people are terrified of Russia and China and bow and join their thing, but you know, they don't have military operations in 100-something countries around the world at any time, either. So, but judging one military versus that, but anyways, yeah, it's pretty weakly showing one's predicting power or powers of prophecy or whatever, saying that, oh, yeah, Russia and Ukraine, when Russia's on the border of Ukraine doing stuff. But it was a pretty cool video. I thought it was like, see, teaches you to try to play with the signs like this to say, see and then you find all these videos. Oh, I would hate to be one of those people you release doves at the wedding, and then people and then they get attacked by wild birds or hit by a car or something, and then people are like,
Yeah,
oh, this divorce, this is going to end tragically.
Don't release any doves anywhere.
But I've noticed that, you know, because as you can see, I'm doing this Plutarch's Lives series. It's taking like probably 6 months to record. It's a bigger book than the Bible. There's all this stuff about omens, and in pretty much everything you could see how you can interpret it the other way. So the people running these omens and these prophecies and stuff like this, they're being fed information, and they're either directing things, or they're politically informed and can figure out a way to say this thing in that way or another. That's why the Delphic Oracle only operated for 9 days. They were learning what to say to people to be more effective in their job the rest of the time.
Wow. Wow.
How much time do you think can be devoted to spiritual or religious practice weekly?
Weekly? Oh, I believe it can be done every day. Like for me, my evening meditations, you know, that's daily. Sometimes I can meditate for 30 minutes, but sometimes it'll go on, you know, so the time would vary. Little things that you do, you know, during certain times of the day, you know, that time adds up. So, I mean, it's possible to do spiritual practices like all throughout the week, you know. Of course, you got to sleep a little, but all the other time could definitely be directed towards increasing that.
Of course, that's one of the things too. You can learn to include one's eating and one's sleeping and stuff in it. And honestly, before filling up the rest of the stuff, that's where I started. It's like, oh, I can just do this the sleep stuff. I can do that. And then I started to have dreams, and not those weird nightmares you have when you're a kid.
Right.
But I mean, I guess some of my dreams are still pretty weird, and then you end up having them when you're awake. And
I don't, if I do dream, I never remember dreaming. So I think that's kind of weird. I never remember, you know, every day I wake up and I just don't seem to have dreams, or I don't recall them. I have before, but it's just been so long, and I just think that's odd.
well, one of the things is the whole natural sleep cycles. If one's awake between dawn and sunrise, that can help. When one gets up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, one washes up and does something for a couple minutes or something, that can help with the remembering dreams even.
Okay.
Like for example, what was I thinking? DMT.
Yeah.
If you get some sleep before the middle of the night, thanks to daylight savings time. Oh, I hope they don't do that thing where it's going to be 2 hours of daylight saving times, where the middle of the night is going to be 2 something a.m. and the middle of the day is going to be 2 something p.m. And it turns out that part of the reason why they're doing it is because they have figured out that the average person will lose 38 minutes of sleep a day. That will make them easier to control.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense, and I strongly agree.
So, yeah. Because yeah, there's that issue. Is there any occasional thing you do spiritually? Like, for example, you may have seen I do seasonals. I sometimes, if I know there's going to be an eclipse, especially if I can see it, I'll do something for an eclipse.
Sometimes it's not even planned. Sometimes I just feel led to, for example, go outside. I have a little spot up here. My house here is right beside of a graveyard. And there is a portion, there's a top portion up there on the hill. It's flat and it's on the top of the mountain. And I just like to go up there at night with a blanket and just like focus on things. Sometimes I will take my energy, and I will envision the person, that I want to send and it's good energy too. And I never know when I'm going to be led to do that. But on the sleep patterns, yeah, that's good. Key, yeah, I think that is the key. Mhm.
I thought these two cards were like, energy. Because these the cards with the jugs here are sort of a transference, and this is sort of, I guess, the partnership of energy.
Energy's the key.
Or will or drive or whatever. Because I've related how, until I was 18, I always believed I had a soul, or was the soul, or however you're gonna phrase it. It's the same thing. It was like, oh, you say you have no, you are the soul. Okay, well, yeah, that's what I believe. But it wasn't that my experience of it. It's like the will was a vehicle, the emotions and the intellect and this physical body is the vehicle. And as much as my mind didn't interfere with that, it was not until I wasn't finally free of the vicarious path, you could call it, to give it a wider term, until I had that experience. And I was the thing inside of all this thing. And sometimes you interpret yourself as more like some alien almost, because that's sort of what you are. We're all like alien compared to this body. But that doesn't mean we're not humans, just whatever. But
yeah,
because yeah, it's like with the Twitter that I now have. Probably going to get banned like the other one, I'm sure. But maybe not. But my thing, I am. What do I say? Okay, what do I say? I am noctulium. I am more than a human being. Like I said in my one seasonal, I did a seasonal ceremony out there. I wrote stuff in chalk. I found some statue of my grandmother's that I brought out for the occasion, because that's what I did with all the little things. Some of them are bigger than others. I decided I got to do something with this. I mean, I wasn't treating the statue as my god or some weird thing like that, but I mean, it was probably just as weird what I was doing out there. But I'm more than a human being, basically, is the phrase, or something like that.
Yeah, I saw your seasonal video. Yeah, sometimes in some of your videos, the meditation ones, I'll follow along. I'll just follow along with that, and yeah, the vibrations, the vibrations of the words. I found that helpful. Very.
Well, in a way, I try to set up a lot of my videos. Like, I don't know, people have compared some of my, I've got comments in the past month saying more like, oh, you're saying it like a children's story so that kids can follow along and understand all the words. It's like, yeah, but you're supposed to be responding to the mythologically engaging with the content, not just, and what, you expect me to say it like, most books, when you're reading aloud, 10 pages an hour is 10 pages a half an hour is plenty fast,
Yeah.
right? People are like, what were you supposed to say? I know in the OTO lodges, they say the entire book of the law in like an hour, like,
Wow.
and like, but or
Wow.
40 minutes or something like this. But I guess it's because people were trying to memorize it and try to say it too fast or something. But it takes about an hour and a half from I think my videos that I did it was an hour and a half or even 50 minutes per a single video. But yeah, you engage it. You know, you do a thing on Greek mythology and it's supposed to come out like what was that show? The Western Tradition. Back in the day on PBS, there was this show, The Western Tradition, and this guy had this dreary sort of voice. I
Right.
watched it, but I don't remember it as well because the guy, and that's how we talked about everything. There was no variation. It wasn't, you know,
Mhm.
but
I
it was
remember back in the day, we had PBS and like Channel 5 and Channel 11. You know, we had 3 TV stations way back in the day.
well, I remember in the 90s living in this college mountain in this college mountain town, and you know, it wasn't terribly populated. You know, it was a town. By town, I mean, of course, less than 50,000 people. I don't know what it is now, but they, yeah, you had like one station.
Yeah. The 90s were pretty cool. That was back, I had my first apartment, and I remember my cable bill was $14.95. So, you know, that was a big thing.
Well, yeah, and that was the thing. And nowadays, well,
It's
internet's
not
becoming
good
sort of a
enough.
necessity, and you do better with internet than you ever did, even with the
Yeah.
spending $50 a month on the satellite.
It's almost to like we're on to the point of absolutely having to have the internet. I saw a news clip just yesterday that they were going to, I don't know if it's true or not because you know how news clips are. Um, but they were saying how all across America they were going to close down a lot of the Walmarts. Well, you know, like I was telling you, this little town here of 950 people, to the grocery store, you know, that everybody depends on is right up the 4 lane. And there's a Walmart there. If that Walmart is closed, uh, there's going to be trouble because in town there's one little, they call them mom and pop stores, you know. It's just a little tiny store that has a few aisles of groceries, one checkout, you know, clerk, and
There's
it's
things brewing with there's plans that they've made possible via the Walmarts, but
it would definitely have to get to the point of ordering groceries through the internet, you know,
yeah,
online.
that, and I think part of the thing is if they do stuff like that, then shortages are not going to look quite as much like shortages as just corporate rearranging.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to be able to adjust, and then go like, well, see, you're just behind the time and it's your fault. That's literally what they're going to put it like. You know, if you have a way of not getting sick that's twice as effective as what they're trying to sell you, and you don't get sick because you don't do the way that they're trying to tell you, even though you did something more effective, you know, if you get sick at all, it's your fault. Even though maybe it was just the sniffles or something for you, but that's,
Yeah.
I guess, not to go into. But the yeah, I remember when it was like all those people that had all their own little shops. It was the Walmart, and you go back. One of the towns that I lived in, I went back there, and not only was it was a lot nicer when it was darker at night. That's one thing. First of all, so I liked when you could go out in the middle between places in Oregon or even California and stuff, and actually see the dark side of the moon. and you can't do that anymore. And, you know, yeah, you know, there was some place where you didn't have a bright light on you, and now everything's all LED, and yeah, everywhere has it. And interesting enough, the crime has still gone up with all the lights and cameras and all that.
Yeah, that's not going to stop them.
But the
it gives people a sense
but
of
you go back there, and all those little stores, it's like, it's okay. Walmart is the one quality, and then there's another level of quality that some other chain stores. So you pretty much have an elimination of entire towns of the small little businesses that used to be. And then of course you can't get the neat little finds at the baseball card shops and stuff like that, and pottery stores and stuff like this that you used to be able to get.
Right.
And they have stuff labeled as charity. So like, wait, the guy who owns the people are begging for extra money who work at the Goodwill. When you go when you go to a Goodwill, there's that little they're having a collection out to help pay the employees because they're not getting paid enough, and the guy who runs the store is a millionaire. And
wow. And most, you know, that stuff from Goodwill is donated to begin with, so yeah, that's terrible.
And Walmart, of course, is the biggest recipient of welfare, and they get $10,000 per hire. They get a welfare check of $10,000 every time they hire somebody.
Wow.
And most of their employees, like
Walmart
some areas, you don't government housing is reserved for Walmart employees and stuff. They literally don't let the people who are who are disabled and can't work 30 hours a week. If you're working 30, 40 hours a week, you shouldn't. They should have it set up where you're not collecting. That's you know, they should say, hey, you got to pay the people enough to live in their area. Thank you very much. That's, you know,
most definitely.
But yeah, people have this mere material consciousness, and then they get quite a bit selfish.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a means. When you break through and you realize that this is all a vehicle, not only do you maintain your vehicle and how you deal with others, like you've heard of the Church of Hermetic Sciences. So yeah, one of the California groups I've interacted with is the Church of Hermetic Sciences, and I think Poke Runyon thinks I have too much variety of the groups and stuff I've been involved with or done research on or something, and it's like, no, I don't do stuff just to get a license or some paper or something like this. This is not why I do it. But I understand why people may misunderstand that I'm doing stuff for itself, more or less, not for, you know, I honestly don't care if people think I have the priesthood authority or whatever to do what I do. Just have to watch out for copyright laws per se sometimes, but you have more freedom with religious stuff. As long as you're fully commenting and not just, oh, I like this audiobook, I'm posting it. You know the one guy, he's, you know, if his other content's important, he, you know, wouldn't do that so much, I would think. But one of the things in the Church of Hermetic Sciences, when you're doing all this stuff with these entities and, you know, when people are invoking and evoking and all that stuff, it goes through you. So, you know, when you realize that this is all as a vehicle for you, for your spiritual side, you have to regard the external, whether they're other spirits or whether they're incarnate creatures or whatnot. You have to regard how you treat them, because it's gonna directly affect you. And then that also gets the whole, and I also like the point that they point out, it's consent. It's not just you're there threatening and ordering around a bunch of spirits to do what you want. You know, you're, you know, it's a consensual thing. It's like one of the things that, again with one of the videos I've recorded, because I have 114 programs on that list. There's probably going to be another 30 or so left that I'm going to shoot before the end of the month that that I've started with.
when I first found your channel, I felt like a kid in a candy store. I was like, wow,
Yeah,
this
look, look in the past if the current thing
is
is not the thing.
awesome.
That's the thing with my channel, is that I came into everything through Joseph Campbell and Mercy Elliott and Richard Cavendish and Nellie Crowley and all that. So I'm trying to learn about and experience a bit of everything, and therefore,
Yeah.
like some people, it's like, oh, he's doing Thelemic Holy Week. It's like, oh, but then he does the Quran too, or he does the Quran and then he doesn't do this other stuff, and oh, he's doing stuff about Judaism. They like something, and then they're like, I've had probably a quarter of the people remain that have subscribed, and a lot of it is because of that, is because I am addressing different subjects and different styles and stuff, and people's like, but I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work if I just have 5 different channels and have things
Right.
divided
Yeah.
onto that.
Yeah.
But I have learned, like, you don't release 20 videos in one. I did do that for a little bit. Is that that's why I'm working the schedule thing. It's because I figured, okay, but because like on a Saturday, maybe I could do 20 videos and do 1 or 2 the rest of the days. And then it was like those videos didn't get as many views. When I divided it into a handful a day, then that seems to be the thing. So I figured, I figure any more than 6 in live stream, I'm reducing the views of what I'm doing. But then again, it's what's wanted of your thing anyways. It's not totally shadow banning or whatever, but people do, there is some, but then again, you could be this person who does these free commercials, that all these people who do these free commercials basically for products and stuff like this and get almost no views on their channel. You spend 8 hours editing a video. The only time I've ever edited a video is when somebody said, hey, I noticed that you're shooting and I want to be excluded. So I go back and exclude them. That's happened once. And I think I've edited like a couple seconds off of something because of some music or something here and there. But because you don't have the rights over that, and unless I'm sitting around with my guitar or my goat drum, because I have a goat leather drum from Morocco. I never went to Morocco, but I had that's just if that helps the description of the thing. And I have tingshaws from Tibet, but they're I'm not didn't go to Tibet either. So I have different musical instruments I use for stuff. I even have a kid's a kid's keyboard here that I can do stuff with.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can't really do chords. It's almost impossible to get it to play 2 notes at once, let alone the other. So because a piano chord, you major, minor, you can't really get the chord thing going. But for a $2 thrift store piano, that's pretty good, I think.
That is.
I was told when I didn't have room in an apartment, there was like a $5,000 piano from some church, and the people taking over is like, well, we don't use the piano, we use our voice. And I didn't want it taking up half my living room. Now I have the space for it. But then again, I wasn't going to, I would have had that piano for what, 7 years before I had a reasonable place to put it. Yeah, when you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, a piano the size of almost the size of your couch is what are you going to do with that thing?
Oh, that would be hard to get in.
And it's the effect of it, and I would have had to worry about okay, how am I going to control myself all the time and only play this quiet enough that I don't disturb my neighbors. So I guess that we've this hasn't been so organized, but I'm getting more coherent in my talking as the conversation goes on, right? Or less.
You're doing great.
because yeah, I felt like my comments and stuff for the past few days haven't been as coherent, but I've, you know,
Have you have you been sleeping
yeah, I
okay?
haven't been sleeping as well, and dealing with and apparently across the country that my mother at the same time is having the same.
Oh, wow.
Hold on a second here.
Oh no, dropped the
Okay,
phone. Okay.
sorry about that.
Accidentally dropped my phone. It's okay.
I thought
I
maybe it
just
was
dropped
closer. I thought maybe it was 4 something, but I have my alarm going off. So it's mid-afternoon, which I would like there to be no daylight savings time.
Yeah.
I
thought of
understand the
that.
time zone thing, but any beyond that, or even what they do in don't they have the same thing? Isn't it China that has like 5 time zones into one, and they're like, so they have the same
Yeah.
time. Everybody has this lives by the same time.
Wow. Yeah.
But then again, in your local area, you would expect maybe that's good for meetings, but your local area, maybe you'd want that people to generally get up with the sun or something like that. This idea where for months out of the year, the kids are going to be going to school in the complete dark, virtually everywhere in the country, even in California.
Yeah. Here
Um,
last winter,
because
my little
the sun's going to be
grandson.
rising.
Yeah.
Some places after 10 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, and it's like, are you kidding me? To get rid of 2 hours daylight savings time, you know, because you know,
Yeah.
I've lived where the sun rises at 8 o'clock in the middle of winter, and you make that 10 o'clock, that's going to
Yeah.
create some issues.
Yeah.
Even where
Maybe that's
even in
what's
Florida,
up.
it's going to be an issue having the sun go up at 9 o'clock, and so everybody has to go to school and work in the dark.
Yeah. That's not even natural feeling, you know. Yeah, last winter was my little grandson, he was had to go to school. He had to get up at 6 o'clock and it was dark. And I saw where that kind of affected him a little bit. You know, he didn't like it. But around here, they've combined like the each town had a little school, or like a high school, middle school, and elementary for 2 towns together. But now they have basically took out the little schools and they've built like very large schools that house all of the grades, and like all of the kids in like 4 or 5 surrounding towns has to go, which means the kids that live farther away from the school, like my little grandson, he gets up at 6 in order to catch the bus and go to school.
Well,
He,
I went to a town where, except for the high school, it was all you know, you had everything until the high school in the one area, and I guess one place I lived, everything was combined, and it was like, so this area, this area, this area, it's like, what, I have to walk an extra 100 yards to use the restroom? Like, I'm using this one right over here, because that's what they do. They'd have you go way over here because they decided, I guess, for the high school or something, they or when you were 8th grade or 9th grade or something, they had something else, so they built another building on the other side.
Yeah.
But then you had to walk, as I said, you had to walk. There was a football field in between you and the next restroom, and it's like, but it wasn't the next restroom. There was the other right next to it. I've never got in trouble for it, but I wasn't supposed to do that. You weren't supposed to. You're supposed to go clear across the you know,
I
to
don't blame you.
the other side, because they had that building out there, but they didn't have any bathrooms or something with it. I don't know, was it the shop class or what was it? I don't remember what it was at this point. But there was something I had to go to for school clear on the other side. And so the grade school and everything else was in between. And I wasn't the only one who stopped there, and that's probably why I didn't get in trouble. If I was the only one, I probably would have got in trouble. But
I remember
yeah, well,
my
it used to be, at least it's not one classroom.
right.
You hear like back in the day going to school, all the
Yeah.
grades in one classroom.
Yeah, one room.
And the teacher, I guess, even worse on the teacher having to come up with stuff for all for
Yeah.
10 to 13 levels of people.
Yeah, having to teach 6-year-olds and 15, 16-year-olds. It would be hard to teach subjects like that all together. It's like the little 6-year-old would be start talking about physics, which I mean that would be cool though.
That was actually me.
Ah,
Now they didn't want me enough. They didn't want me enough to pay my way per se for somebody to accompany me, because until you're 16 in most states, you can't go to college unless you have somebody with you. But I tested. It was years before that when I tested my way into things. But as much as I was 99th percentile, all that stuff, I wasn't advanced enough for them to want to pay. They would have been okay if my parents took off work, but as I'm saying, rent was quite a bit, and they couldn't afford to take off work, either my parents, to go with me, and couldn't afford to hire somebody to go with me either. So that was, that was that. But yeah, I was that. Now I did give when I was, I think I was still 12 at the time, I gave a physics lecture, and basically it was like, this was a weird thing. This guy's doing, the youngest person outside of college. It's I mean, the youngest person in this little college town giving this thing, and I was given a couple, given a couple pops out of it, because I was in 7th grade. I gave lectures basically I gave a lecture to the teachers, and it turned out they didn't really understand it either. So of course I explained things to I explained things to myself. But I've I guess I'm getting better at the teacher thing, but I don't know what people are going to understand, so I end up speaking Shakespeare level words to the 4-year-olds, and I don't know the difference, because one, I went through things too quickly. Well, not too quickly, but you know what I mean. When you're reading at a college level and you're first grader or kindergartner, you're like, you don't remember, when I was this old, I was reading this,
wow.
when you're the only person in your small town who's read all the classics in your library. This, some 10-year-old reading War and Peace, and stuff like, it's like nobody ever checks War and Peace and all 6 volumes of Gibbon's out, and this is the, so I don't understand what people, because people talk about the the grade school speak and that sort of stuff. I do understand like some things per se, but like the news, they figure out how to tell the truth that it sounds like something different than what it is.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big problems there, is that it sounds different than what it is. So they seem like they're lying and all this. But in a way they're telling the truth. It just doesn't, you don't get that perception of that. Something really horrible sounds nice.
Right.
Something not so bad. Oh, people are trying to drive out the soldiers. They're a bunch of terrorists. That sort of stuff. Have you ever had deja vu?
Oh, yes. I can remember experiencing that even when I was a small little kid. Um, like being on my bicycle, and back then I was raised in this little community, and it had one road, of course, a little street, and there was a curve right above my house, and it was a blind curve, and I mean, I could see before it happened, like a car would be coming, and I would be in the in the road riding my bicycle, so I would get over close to the sidewalk, um, and because there wasn't a lot of traffic, around here. It's very low population. But even as a small child, I can remember things like that, and it helped me a lot of times. And sometimes I'll have deja vu about what I'm going to cook 2 days later, and it'll be like the exact same scene in my mind, what I'm cooking, how I'm cooking it. That's just examples. But oh yeah, it happens a lot.
Have you ever had what you would consider to be a past life memory?
Hmm. Actually, no and yes. I have these. I'll have like feelings uh, that come into me or within me, and it's like I'll see like Egyptian scenes, I guess, and I don't know if that's indicating that maybe I did have a past life and that's where I live. Um,
What do you mean by
so
Egyptian?
Like an Egyptian, like thousands of years ago. I see the pyramids and the brick stone houses. I'll just see like the scene. So even the sand. But as far as a person, hmm, I don't know. But no real memories, of a past life. But I feel it's very possible. Very possible.
Have you had a near-death experience?
Yes, yes. There was one point in time I was 32, and I went into kidney failure, and I was in ICU, and I was out of it. Just I was passed out of it because of the kidney failure. But when I became conscious again, conscious, I looked around and, I'm in this ICU, but I envisioned the healing energy going down to the kidneys. I focused on that. And the next day I walked out of the ICU. So I think that, I don't know if people would call that a miracle. I don't think, I wouldn't call it that. But I do call it self-healing. I think we can heal ourselves. Self-healing.
Oh, I was holding this up because that's the first thing I thought could relate. Um,
Was that an 8? No,
no, it's a 7,
7.
and so 7 of coins is what the card's officially called. So it would be the Pentacles card, but see, it has this tree, and I guess a dove on top of it. Whatever type of bird you want to think that is it's not too distinct. It's like a tree on top of a hill.
Um,
This is an awkward time of day to get the things showing right, because for some reason, mid-afternoon, it's harder to do a video because the way the light is or something in here.
Yeah. Yeah, still healing from within.
Yeah, near-death experience is part of the reason why I'm like, never had the idea of, never really was one to use anything recreationally, not even, you know,
Right.
some coffee in college. That's about it. Yeah, I'm a real rebel here. But is that, yeah, some of that medication, it's like,
Yeah.
some of it, had I been on the medication when I lived in that horrible apartment, could have easily made the difference between life and death. Because there were mornings where it'd be as much as 20 minutes. I didn't know if I was going to get up. You wake up, but you don't know, you don't get up. You don't get up for like 20 minutes at a time. And sometimes it was like, I thought I was dying because it was like my breath was killing me.
Wow.
And the medication sort of things too. It's not a way to pass. Dying on, people think, oh, dying on drugs is going to be great. I don't think so, because if you're conscious of it, what happens? Your heart stops. Best case scenario, it's like opiates, and like your heart stops and your breathing stops, that sort of things. That's not pleasant at all.
No.
Trust me. It's like, but if it's like some of the other stuff, like some of the ADHD medication, it can feel like you're on that. You don't know whether it's like killing your. It's like my heart rate was like 180 something after resting the one time I was at school, and I don't know, was that Tylenol or something. I didn't need any of that medication. Didn't do it's just, but they found somebody who was different and wanted to give them some drugs. I didn't have delusions. I didn't have whatever. All I needed was to eat better and not so much. Not. I know that's un-American, but
no,
you don't want to eat white bread all the time and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, I kind of, now I can't survive at all if I ever went back to that. I guess I would for about 3 months, they say. The doctor said, well, it's good you figured that out, because it took you 3 months to get here. And honestly, you could only live about 3 to 6 months like that. And when eating makes you bleed, you believe him.
Oh.
Oh
my. Yes.
So yeah, that you kind of believe them if eating a certain way is going to have some effects. And and the only way they can properly diagnose you is you remember how bad it was and the details, and it's like, okay, now we can diagnose you, but we couldn't if we just but anyways, I'm thinking some stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's worse than that. It's like, because you feel like maybe some pain or something like that, and it's like you're on fire, and like this anxiety and stuff like this. Yeah, I wouldn't want to die on, if dying on meth is like is like extreme reactions to that class of medication. Yeah, that tears me away from any hopes of wanting to indulge in that sort of stuff for fun or something like that. I don't want to go through that. Even opiates tended to go over better, but like the idea that I'm going to stop breathing and my heart's going to stop beating, and I'm going to have to live through that, and maybe live through that over and over again as my brain, I kill off some of my brain here, some of it there, overdosing and stuff like this. No, that was just off. That was not just off the thing. But sometimes it's like you see things that you don't when you're having that experience.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, I don't know what I could have died. There was some beans, the lupini beans. Apparently, you're supposed to rinse them for days and days until they change color. I didn't know there was just not different types of the things. It's like, how you're supposed to know you're supposed to rinse the things until they change color on you? That's crazy sounding, right?
Right.
because they turn like bright yellow, and it's like, I didn't know that. I thought it was a different type. So you get it from the store, and they all say stuff about salt. Maybe you have to treat it with salt to reflect the chemical. So there's a chemical with it, and everything went, you you can't go to the bathroom, and then everything was black with pink and purple, and I was, it's like when I phoned the, it's like I'm trying to make my way to the door to unlock the thing, but I'm not sure that I can get the thing unlocked because I was phoning the ambulance. I couldn't get anybody to come to help me, and
Oh man.
because the TV was too loud, I guess they didn't hear things. They didn't know until the ambulance showed up that anything was wrong, and yeah, the things are all with veins and all sorts of other stuff, and but like black, it's like, I guess, a bad mushroom trip was what it's supposed to be like, which I'm scared to wander around. There's 3 very deadly mushrooms that grow on the property here, and I'm like, if the thing has stuff that gets on some of the mushrooms around, so you can have the right type of mushroom, but if there's another mushroom near it that's a bad mushroom, you don't want to eat it. So I'm not confident enough, even if I figure out the right mushroom, that because I found as much as, well, there's more expensive stuff, I guess, but $100 a pound mushrooms I found out here, but I don't know about the other mushrooms, and I know 3 of them are of the deadliest mushrooms in the world. Like, the destroying angel is a common type on this property.
Wow. I wouldn't know the difference either. I would be too afraid to take a chance.
And yeah, the odds are, considering anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes to half an hour it takes an ambulance to get it out here on average. And I guess it took long. Well, I get glad things weren't worse, right? Because it took twice as long as it could have for this thing to get for them to get here from the hospital from when that happened to me. But all 3 of those mushrooms, they say if you have one bite in your mouth, don't even expect the ambulance to get there before you die. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not messing around. I'm not. I don't touch the mushrooms.
Right. Don't even touch it.
Because I know there's a lot of edible mushrooms and all this other stuff. It's like there's these orange mushrooms that you can find. I guess it's taken me a couple of years to figure out how to find them. But last year, when I was going about taking all those videos with mushrooms in the background, it helped me to figure out how to find the mushrooms and notice the animal behavior and how they react to finding the mushrooms without even seeing them and stuff like that. But sometimes it's light, sometimes it's smell, they find things. But there's these orange mushrooms, but then there's these other orange mushrooms. So you either die or have a weird gourmet sort of experience. So which one you're going to get, and they kind of grow in the same area when you're doing that. So have you you said you experienced prophecy. So your experiences are all your spiritual experiences are all waking spiritual experiences, right?
I'm awake when the messages will come, or the visions, or guidance, or just what to do with no prior knowledge, really. It all happens while I'm awake.
The reason why I probably went in that tangent about the thing, because I've said it before, with the near-death experience thing. When I was near death, it was like, that's when I experienced the grays, you could call them. So I call the type of entity drill sergeant gray. When I heard that, I'm like, that's kind of how I felt about them. So that's why I've started at I've declared my chapter per se out here and all that stuff, because that's kind of how I've thought of them. It's like they're there in teaching and training moments, but they're not like, but they're difficult times, right? Like some of the worst things in one's life. It's like what, you're just going to watch, you know?
Yeah.
And but it's a little more than that, I could say, but it's like they don't really show up so obviously at other times. I guess there's been a few times where it wasn't like, but you know.
Yeah.
Like that, like they say that one, that like when I showed that card, the one corner is like, you know, some get punished because they're not doing, because they're doing too much. You're going to get punished because you're not doing enough. So basically you push yourself to do more is the point. Kind of like the whole thing behind Buddhism that gives its strength, really, is that you're alive, you still have work to do.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, you reach this peak point, just like the whole, you find the same thing with Zarathustra and with Muhammad, is that they had their peak experience and their mission went on for years after that. Their top peak experience, their mission went on for years. So, or perhaps, or at the very least, the moment where all these individuals in the past are called to be prophets, well, there's always more to come.
Yeah.
I guess some people, they were like told something once or twice, and that was it. That was fine. But of course, a lot of what people call, it's like we have our own feelings and emotions. It's kind of annoying, all these people thinking that, oh, you're saying that this is good or bad just because of the weather. I've been around you long enough, dude. You know, it's the weather that's deciding this thing. Or, you know, you never say this on, you never make these bad these bad judgments when the moon is full. But you know, when it's not so full, then you say stuff. So people are, you know, but they train you. They train you. It's like the church I was raised in. The guy who leads the church, there's only been a couple people in that church, you know, started in the 1820s technically, but there's only been a couple people out of the millions of people who are currently members that have ever had what you would call significant spiritual experiences, mostly making your way up through the ranks in the church. And they teach you, you learn the scriptures and you learn church doctrines and that sort of thing. And you just operate that and use your feelings to guide you within that. There's not really the flavor with it. Like, you know, like the people who, when they get a deck of cards, they only look at the list. They only look at the list. They look at the list of the meaning of the card, of some card, and they only have that to say. And that's the only thing going on with a lot of multi-generation churches is that the person they decide is their prophet or something is only decided to, it's his own thoughts, it's his own feelings. That's perfectly fine, but it's ultra conservative basically. So they find somebody among the deacons or whoever is more conservative than the rest and is going to make no decision whatever, and then you decide to advance that person.
Cool.
Like my criticism, if you saw any of it, I don't know, the Merritt Cossapon's True and Faithful Relation opens up with his preface. And I probably did more comment, I probably did more comment on each one of those videos than any of the other videos, unless I shared my own experience with this thing of the Enochian system, you could call it. But he did this anti-enthusiasm thing. And as I said, it's, you know, no, you want the enthusiasm. You just want to be honest about it. You get emotional in church. That doesn't mean the Holy Spirit's telling you whatever. There is divine emotion. It's like, that's one thing I didn't ask. Have you experienced what you call divine connections or divine emotions? Or
Right.
Like, now I know some stuff is my own experience. I mean, my own sense of things, but like you get into such a state. Like I've related to some of the accounts of my rituals that I've shared, that sometimes I'm just telling how the rituals, like the Goetia programs, I'm not really doing the ritual. I share the chants that I have associated with it, but I don't really redo the ritual. At some point I may whatever, but I'm doing the Grammarium Borum like series is my focus as far as that. But you feel like everything loves you. You're on the floor and the carpet loves you and all this other stuff. And it's like totally real. But then sometimes it's more than that. It's like there's this other entity there and stuff. Like I was going through a college, walking through a college campus. I don't remember what class it was after or whatever, but the in that state, there's a lot of cherry blossoms in the spring tends to be the thing with, like, for some reason, like all the colleges in that state have cherry trees.
Huh.
I think so. That's what I'm not sure about all of them, but that's what it seems like. It's like there's cherry trees everywhere. And so
Yeah.
it was like April or something, and the cherry blossoms were falling. It's like all over. It was like one of those, like it's kind of like what Rumi said in a way, because Rumi said it was like Allah, Allah, Allah. Every petal as it fell, I heard it, and it's like divine presence everywhere. And it was like, but it was different than other presences. It was like, as I'm saying, everywhere, and every petal, it was like it was mentioning God every time it fell.
Wow.
And that was I say Rumi because Rumi was going through Konya in Turkey, and he heard the metal. He went through the metalsmiths, and when he was going through that area, ding 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 ding, and it was all Allah, Allah, Allah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Sufi meetings, you go like, that's how you do it physically. And then it's weird. Some of the groups have somebody going around in the center, and they're like, I guess they're reading your aura or something like that, or they're casting off stuff. I guess it depends on what they do. But yeah, I've remembered that. Well, we're having a conversation. Well, intuition. You said you've had intuition. Does it seem like you've encountered the dead?
Encountered the dead.
Yeah.
I feel I had actually a few experiences where I go out, from myself and go visit my mom and grandmother and great grandmother, and it feels real. I just come up. I'll find it's like a large white portal, like around, just sparkly white. I go through that, and I see my family, and it's a beautiful place. We're talking lush green grass, a little cozy cottage house, big oak trees. The temperature is perfect. Um, it'll feel like I'll have these experiences where I will talk to my great grandmother, my grandmother, and my mom, and they're all together, and it's like they're waiting for me. That's the feeling I get. But I'll go there quite a few times and visit them.
For me, for the most part, anything that I'd call ghost probably is more often the living.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can think of somebody, it's like every time they've overdosed in the past 11 years, I've known. Every time they've gone locked up, I know before it even gets, sometimes I don't know exactly which one, but
Right.
it's like I know without people telling me at this time. And then what they post, I guess like half an hour later you can find out someone was arrested, but somehow I know they've been arrested before they were before it's announced. But sometimes it's like not like I knew the moment, the minute my grandfather died, my one grandfather, I knew which minute.
Yeah.
And then I find out a day or two later that he died.
Well, my mother, before her dad died, she had a dream that she was chasing a white horse. She was 13 years old when he died. But that night, before he died, that night, she dreamed of, she kept trying to chase this white horse and she couldn't catch it. But she said it was they were running so fast that the horse's tail mane, the tips of it was going through her fingers, but she could not catch it. So and then later, late that night, early morning, they found out that her dad, my grandpa, was had been killed. So mom she was very, very into it.
For the most part, it's not even it's like something of connected to something, right? Like I don't get the sense when I've had point out some weird stuff that I'm sensing in the graveyard that it's the dead person itself. It's like per se, sometimes it's like literally been like it's like somebody at the funeral and like that's left a mark there.
Yeah.
Or someone who's visited the grave or something. It's like it's not the person of the grave, it's something about somebody who was standing here.
Yeah, you see them.
And that's sort of been my sense. It hasn't been actually like the dead and come back. And interesting, like I told you, that technique, you can actually have I see that you saw that video that you're it relates to, I make the joke that especially when you're drinking, and of course that's probably a bad idea that kind of meshes with the effectiveness of it, but when you reduce the activity in that region, if you do it with if you drink to the point where you're kind of your brain's slowing down in parts, you're probably going to do some damage, right? But the thing about that is that you can have these interactive memories, and very often it ends up either being related to a trauma or somebody dead. And there's stuff you can do outside that. I mean, telling people the context, but they do. I released that video when I saw something that they did research. Why do people sometimes have this sense like they're seeing the dead? And they actually found, a spot that when the activity slows down, that can happen.
Well,
so do you have any active relationship with any spiritual entity, much in the way as if they were, a physical presence that you
just the self. I'm working with the self right now. Like I've seen what people would call ghosts and things like that, but I've not like worked with anything like that. Just myself, my inner self. I believe that that's actually can be not all entities, but I believe that's where I can begin.
well, whether one's aware of what happens or not, there's a lot of truth to the law of attraction, law of repulsion sort of thing. And when you got those aspects of yourself dealt with, then maybe there's entities that want to come and join you in what you're doing there.
Yeah.
or at least witnessed, you know. Yeah, have you ever had experiences where it's not that you've summoned up some entity or whatnot, it's just you've done a ritual or something, and it's like there's a company that comes and watches you?
I felt like being watched, but I've never like seen them at that time. But yeah, I can feel presences, but I don't see them very recent.
Do cats have some sort of heat-seeking things like some of the snakes do or something? Because
Cats.
it's like through walls. Like
Mhm.
the cat knows which side of the house you went to or something like that, and it's meowing on that side of the house, and you're like not talking or anything. Of course, I guess the footsteps, they hear them better than people do, probably.
My cat, I have a Siamese, and oh, he's so beautiful. And he minds me quite well. So yeah, he's definitely, he feels like a part of me. If if that sounds odd, but that I'm just connected to him. And when he's outside, and his he's a tomcat, and he likes to go outside every now and then, and I'll let him out. But then when I want him to come home, like in the evening time, right at dark, in my mind, I'll tell him, okay, Sid, it's time to come home. And I envision him walking towards the house. And next thing I know, I open the door and there he is. He listens to
Like
me.
we keep the cats outside here, which means we fluctuate in population quite a bit sometimes. One year we went from 11 cats to three cats. But it's like in the middle of the night, it's like the cat knows through the wall what side of the bed you're on.
Yeah,
Yeah. But they're not even in the room. The cat's just and then the other night it's on the other side, closer where you are. But
I have a special connection with cats. I always have.
but I mean, recently it's not rituals per se, but because it's more my readings. But the cat come and find me in the forest and sit with me. But that's probably going to mean I'm not going to be able to have turtles and frogs and stuff in my videos, because it's that the cat's going to make sure that those don't show up. Hopefully not. It can be months in between seeing those things anyways, because but yeah, cats. One can find in some of my videos cats showing up in magical circles, or they circle around me. Like sometimes it's like they interact with things around.
Yeah, if I'm in here, doing just a little thing. Sid, that's my cat's name. He will just be all over the place. He'll rub against my back, and he'll sit and look at me, and it's like he is helping me. So yeah, we have fun.
The have you experienced any other type of mystical experience that you would like to put in the summary here?
Talking, I was see about 20 years old, and I was married. I got married, and like I said, he's my ex now, but he got interested in going to church. So, I went with him. Um, I could, like, in people, it was like, I guess you would call it a holy church, or where they speak in tongues, and the people would be speaking in tongues. And when I heard it out of my mouth, I would say it in English, what they were saying. So I mean that was kind of fun. But I I went away from Christianity. I just thought it was, quite neat how when they would talk in the tongue, I could tell and repeat and let it be known what they were saying in English. And that that was that was cool. You know,
It looks like I'm about going to have to go. We can definitely get into some of this, or well, that meme I had earlier. Let me see if I can tilt that. So I definitely have more of this series to do in the next 6 months.
awesome.
So we can always get into some of that at another time, or
Okay.
one of the seasons, or something. Any final thoughts before I?
Thank you for us talking and meeting. It's been really cool. And I just appreciate you and all of your videos where you teach people all sorts of different things. I think that's just really, really awesome.
Well, I treated it like a video temple, and if you really operate a temple, it's like, well, if you're the only person there at the time, that's whatever. But one person, that's good. If I get 1,000 videos and something, honestly, one of my most viewed video was something with that was poorly shot in my living room, walking around in front of my one altar arrangement. So you know,
I,
goes to prove the editing is. I
right.
mean, you do it for yourself. You do it if it's needed, but it doesn't necessarily get you anywhere.
On my phone, I don't even know how to edit. So
Um,
I call it raw material.
well, yeah, I've treated the whole thing as a spiritual practice. But
Right.
I'm gonna. Vifu,